So good evening to all. So from the previous class, uh, we roughly explained the entangled photon pair when it is generated through some nonlinear photonic nonlinear optics, Chi2 process and Chi3 process. So Chi2 process is basically three-way mixing. I think just a quick review here. So this is the Chi2 process where three waves will be interacting, meaning for entangled photon pair generation, you can have only one intense pump light, and then that pump photon will be decomposed into two daughter photons called signal and idler, and they can be entangled, and they can be entangled depending on its polarization. Particularly, there are two different types of nonlinear interaction. Type 1 type, where both signal and both the daughter photons, even though they are different frequency, they can be in same polarization. So if signal is in horizontal, idler also will be horizontal. And signal, if it is vertical polarization, this is again vertical polarization. Still, we can consider they can be entangled, but if, as you see only this one, that means you can consider they are correlated basically. So when one photon will be detected, then only other photon will be appear in the appear. So if they are entangled, and another is type 2. So type 2, where signal and idler, they are orthogonal polarization. So in that case, it is very good. You can use polarization entangled, two basis function, basis eigenstates, we would say. That's one is horizontal, vertical, vertical, horizontal. So that means if you try to measure partial measurement, you do partial measurement on one photon, if you find that it can, it is equally probable of this state and this state if you measure. So by chance, if you are measuring in your partial measurement in signal photon, it is horizontal, then you are sure that idler photon will be vertical, even though they are far apart. So this is some kind of peculiar thing that so in Einstein's word, it is a spooky accents. So at a distance, so you are doing something in one point, and then you see something other point, some result instantaneously without any time gap. So that is actually something thought it is a strange thing, but later on it is found that yes, that is actually the case. Experimentally, it is also proved that that is how it is, they are related, correlated. Okay, so the similar situation you can think of in another type of nonlinearity where chi2 is 0. There actually you can use chi3 process, where actually four-wave mixing takes place instead of three waves interaction like pump, signal, idler. Here you have also pump, signal, idler, but here two pump photons will be interacting jointly, creating two daughter photons, signal and idler. So that's why it is a four-way mixing process. If I get a time, I will just quickly explain how this nonlinearity everything comes. I think any classical nonlinear optics book you can find, but whatever necessary here, I will try to explain later on. But roughly, we can say that this is based on the polarization conservation and momentum conservation. This type of situation can happen, and type 1, type 2 correlation can happen, and we can express this entangled photon pairs in this form. Okay, so psi, SPDC, and SPD means Chi2 process, spontaneous, parametric, down conversion. And this is called spontaneous 4-way mixing process. So that is actually traditionally this type of name is given, and you have to accept that, because 4-wave is understandable, but why not this is 3-wave? So something we have to rely on whatever the traditional things. So this entangled photon, that can be a superposition state of Siegler and Adler photon, because they are creating in pairs. So we can say that there can be no generation. That means n equal to 0, Siegler n equal to 0, Adler n equal to 0. And if there is one generation, 1 1, 2 generation, 2 2, and so on, 3 generation, it can happen something like that. These are actually called the so-called Fock state, or photon's number state. And when it generates, theoretically it can be shown that they are in a series like this. So the coefficient Cn complex coefficients, something like that, and it is, I have corrected this one, it was to the power r here, it is n now, and r is called squeezing parameters. And this squeezing parameter, by controlling the squeezing parameter, basically you don't allow to have more than one photon, one Siegler photon, one Adler photon, or no Siegler photon, no Adler photon. So that is actually how we can get, if there is a if you can create, if your device is designed such that this R is not R is controlled by some pump value and or the design architecture of your device, then you can have this type of situation. So that is actually called squeezing. Squeezing parameters means you are there are different type of squeezing options are there. One option is we will call that this sub-Poissonian source, generation of sub-Poissonian source. It can be starting from the coherent source. Sub-Poissonian source can be generated where actually delta n can be close to 0. So this thing is possible, and it is demonstrated, and several application has been done. But what we'll discuss today, that little bit of understanding of how the squeezed state can be detected and can be generated. It's also again roughly qualitatively with experimental view, not much theoretical insight, but qualitative thing, because that is very important, experimental particularly important for application technology applications. I'll discuss that today a bit. So this is how we come to this point, that the squeezing basically we can think of that the quantum mechanical equivalent of classical monochromatic wave is a coherent state, and this coherent state can be expressed in Dirac notation, so called alpha. That means if some field is there and we are representing as a laser light monochromatic, one single mode is there, and we are expressing that as a Kate alpha. And this alpha, we can relate this alpha to your electric field associated to this coherent light such that it is dimensionless, can be a complex number. And so you can just same thing I just presented here, this frequency omega and in a cavity volume V that is there. And then if it is a coherent source, that coherent source also we have shown that it can be expressed in terms of quadratures, field quadratures. This alpha or electric field, that is actually dimensionless electric field, can be actually decomposed into field quadratures with a 90-degree phase difference. So And in this form we represent so that we can actually express in a phasor diagram. Okay, that means these two field quadratures, they can be equivalent to some kind of canonical variables of a quantum mechanical system. For example, it can be made analogous to momentum and position, uncertainty principle. Everything can be directly related to that. So that is why we express that in terms of field quadratures, just to allow quantum mechanical all the accessibility for a coherent source. So if you are representing like that, then alpha can be represented like this. That's a norm will be there, and then some phase. So that is how it will be like this. And as I said that this is actually we have shown earlier, they are actually like a momentum and position of a harmonic oscillator, or velocity and position. Then according to the uncertainty principle, we have shown that the minimum uncertainties, at least for the ground state, we can show that delta x1 delta x2 equal to 1/4. That's actually dimensionless. So this h chart things are not there because it is everything is dimensionless, so it is coming like a number, and we can actually express them. This is a some kind of wild approximation that it can happen that delta x1 equal to delta x2 equal to half. Just for understanding purpose, we consider that need not be there equal. But if you just consider, then for our understanding purpose, we can just think of it would be more or less like a circle. The tip will be fluctuating within the circle because of the uncertainties. So this is x1 and this is x2. So the strength, field strength, and that means alpha, that coherent state, that can vary because of the quantum mechanical uncertainties. So we started with a classical things, then we introduced this field quadratures and related to harmonic oscillator. Then we come to a conclusion that if a monochromatic mode can be considered as a harmonic oscillator, it can also fluctuate, and this is the situation. This is somehow we can express. And then we also showed that by comparing the expression given in equation 378, 379. So this is 407. So we could establish the relationship between alpha and E naught. So 378 and 379, that means we have this x1 and x2, whatever x1 and x2 we have expressed earlier. And so in that case, your alpha will be square root of x1 square plus x2 square, and x1 x2 square, if we just see 378 and 379, so you remember, just for understanding purpose, 378, so this is the numbers are there, x1 and x2. Then with that you have cos omega t sin omega t term will be there, and then that will be cos square omega t sin square omega t. So basically this value, basically alpha. So this is the strength. This is the strength alpha, and then you can write this one like this. So that value, if you just say that, then we express right alpha in terms of E naught, and of course depends on volume also. So that means volume is more, and for the same field strength, your alpha value will be more. H cut omega, these are the constant values. So this is somewhat cavity mode. We can just express like this one. That's the length basically. Along with that, you can think of there will be some kind of fluctuations will be there. So alpha will be fluctuating. Now if you see, you try to find out that a mode, a classical electromagnetic mode, if you try to find out what is the energy, associate energy density, basically energy density of the mode, we have expressed earlier. This expression we have expressed earlier, that in cavity mode there will be energy associated with the electric field and energy associated with the magnetic field, and they will be associated to sine square omega t, cos square omega t, and we have explained that the energy will be circling back and forth as a function of time. We have started with a standing wave of a mode, and this is the expression. Now we know this electric field amplitude and magnetic field amplitude, they are related. I think the B naught, if it is free space, cavity is just a free space, nothing is there, no material, then we can approximately consider, this is just for understanding purpose, it need not be that it is free space, it has to be material medium. So B naught equal to mu naught H, and then you just convert this B naught with eta naught. Eta is the intrinsic impedance, that is we understand from the electromagnetic theory. Then if we put down, then total energy comes like this. So B naught square, if you just put down, then B by 4 epsilon naught E naught square it is coming. Now you see, this thing is the energy, right? Energy density of a mode. And if you just try to see, compare this one 407 and this one, I can replace this E naught square. E naught square I can just express from here and put down here. Then I can express the energy is nothing but h squared omega alpha square. So just using 407, I could say that classical energy also, you can just, whatever you have this dimensionless value, you just multiply with h squared omega, that is when some quantum nature we can introduce in the classical equation. Okay, this is the energy in terms of that. Now if we go back to again a little bit of quantum, we know that when we equivalent it to a harmonic oscillator, then the mode actually can have energy in this form, n h squared omega, n plus half h squared omega basically, where this n, in case of quantum harmonic oscillator, that is actually different state. It is defined, but in case of electromagnetic oscillator, harmonic oscillator mode, then this n bar can be considered average number of photon present in that mode. And since we are directly making analogy with the quantum harmonic oscillator, so half h squared omega also include. Now you see, this part is basically classical equivalent, and the quantum, we can say that this part is somewhat classically it should match. This half h squared omega normally we cannot explain classically. That is actually quantum, because of the quantum treatment, this 0 point energy comes, which cannot be explained classically. So I can say that whatever classical energy we are getting here, right, that can be equal to this classical energy here. That means this h squared omega alpha naught square, whatever we are writing here, if I just make it equal to this one, then this alpha comes like square root of n bar. So this is now, we could relate. You see, now our flow, we try to, we through this equation, our classical electromagnetic field, electric field is shown, it's scaled such that it can become like a dimensionless. So alpha is this one. Now this alpha again I have related to number of photon in the mode. Okay, square root of n. So if this is the situation coming, then I can express this phasor diagram again. Instead of alpha, I am writing this alpha is equal to square root of n bar. N bar is the number of photon present in that mode, right? And still, instead of alpha, I'm just writing this one, nothing else. And I can still think this is actually phi. because x1 quadrature, x2 quadrature, same phasor diagram we are showing. And again we know, okay, this is my classical part, but this quantum mechanical part, we have this quadrature uncertainty is there. X1 direction uncertainty is, x2 direction uncertainty is there, right? So you can just consider that x1 direction uncertainty and x2 direction uncertainty, so that delta x1, delta x2, we can always consider 1 over 4. That is the thing. Now, if I just try to show that instead of just field quadrature uncertainty, if I just relate that this number of photon, this is actually strength, number of photon. This number of photons, actually that is, if the tip is within this, that means you can say that this number of photon is varying from this point to this point, right? And this, since it's a circle, and we can also represent some kind of phase here, phase variations. So alpha and phi will have some kind of, if this is fluctuating within this, then this type of fluctuation in angle, that means uncertainty is angle also defined as a delta phi. So this is what, the tip is varying like that, we can represent like that. Now if you see, the uncertainty is n, how much the uncertainty in n, okay, that is actually, we can define as delta n equal to, that means I can write whatever value here and whatever value here. So this is nothing but, this extreme value is, if it is alpha, right, then we can say that alpha plus half, and it is basically alpha is varying alpha plus half to alpha minus half. So that is how we can just define our, so this dimension, whatever the dimension we have given here, this dimension half is there. So we are just alpha, we are just writing square root of n. So that means we can say that alpha is varying from minus half to plus half. So that is how we can just express. So delta n from this geometry, we can express that number uncertainty, if I just try to find out, that is alpha is a square root of n, right? So square root of n, and we are just putting half, then square it, and alpha minus half, square it. That is the variation. And if you just simplify it, this is nothing but mod alpha. So mod alpha is, again, we know that alpha value, we proved here, alpha value is square root of n bar. So this delta n is square root of n bar. So you can recollect that for your Poissonian distribution, your standard deviation is delta n, right? Standard deviation delta n equal to square root of n bar. So here also we just tried to relate that one, that standard deviation, that means this fluctuation, number fluctuations, we can say number uncertainties, photon number uncertainties in the cavity, that can be square root of n bar. Now you try to find what is the phase uncertainty. Okay, so phase uncertainty, if you just try to see, this is n and this is delta phi. So if you see delta phi times square root of n, that means this is the length, and the delta phi if you multiply, then you get what you get. You get basically half, that is the diameter of this one. So delta phi times square root of n bar equal to half, we are writing. So that means I can say that phase uncertainty is 1 over 2 square root of n bar. Now if I just try to see delta n multiplied by delta phi, then that should be half, right? Delta n equal to square root of n bar, delta phi is equal to this one. So if you multiply, then that will be half. So we know that this is coming because of this half is coming because of we have considered this quadrature uncertainty is minimum. Delta x1 multiplied by delta x2 is equal to 1 over 4. So from that point of view, we are getting delta n equal to delta phi equal to half. But normally uncertainty can be more than that. So that's why minimum will be half. It will be more than this. Minimum uncertainty will be half. Delta n, delta phi will be half. Okay. So this is the situation for the coherent state. If it is a coherent state, semi-classically, we treat it and then we emphasized if it is quantum, then what would happen, and then we end up with a so-called number phase uncertainty of this one. So if we try to interpret here, suppose minimum, it is the mode is in the minimum uncertainty, half is there. So that means if you can say that in a coherent state, if it is delta n uncertainty is more, then I think you can because if it is a constant half, then delta phi can be reduced. Normally delta n, if you want to increase, you can actually reduce delta phi, or if you want to increase delta phi, delta n can be reduced. Now you know that if you want to get your sub-Poissonian source, that means you have a chance that you can reduce the value of delta n by relaxing delta phi. Okay, so if you devise a design, because this is physically, this is theory. So if this theory can be implemented such a way that I can relax delta phi, I allow to increase the phi value, delta phi fluctuation is more, then I can ensure from the uncertainty principle delta n will be lower. It is something like that. If you it's like a quantum particle momentum position uncertainty. If you can find your position more accurately, that means your momentum will be less accurate, less accurate, so called. Yeah. So that is the thing is possible. If you can just somehow you can devise a design where actually delta n is reduced and delta phi is relaxed, that type of source, if you create, that will be called as a squeezed source, squeezing. So something, either you are number squeezing or phase squeezing. These two type of source you can actually design, squeezed state. So that means the squeezed state actually from a coherent source, if you just somehow squeeze the coherent light, laser light for example, through a device, then your delta n can be reduced, and that can be can give you some kind of squeezing, and the certain name we call it as a so-called what call that, amplitude squeezing. When delta n is less, you are reducing at the cost of delta phi relaxing, that will be called amplitude squeezed. And when delta n relaxed, delta phi is squeezed, then it is called phase squeezed. So these are the squeezed state. So thing is that you can understand that if a delta n is squeezed, that has many applications, like whatever I have shown there, that this type of state we can generate, that entangled state you can generate where you can get 1 1 0 0, and that will not fluctuate much. That means sometimes 1, sometimes 5, sometimes 10, sometimes again 5. So not like that. If it is a squeezed state, that means you can, your variation will be less. So that is how the idea we wanted to have. Okay, so this is something example given here. So we have 3 different type of quadrature squeezed states we have. So first is called a squeezed vacuum state. Squeezed vacuum state means when in your mode there is no field, no photons are there. That is what your 0 point energy, right? And there delta x1, and there if you can, so that type of thing you can express in your quadrature, field quadrature x1 and x2. That will be because there is no field strength, no energy is there. So your uncertainty quadrature delta x1 delta x2 will be within this circle. But somehow if you make this delta x1 less than half, and at the cost of delta xt, because delta x1 and delta x2, these are the quadrature things. They will follow some kind of uncertainty principle. So you can actually squeeze in one direction at the cost of relaxing other direction. So that type of thing, we call it as a squeezed vacuum state. It's a vacuum because no photons is there, vacuum state that is called. That also has a very lot of applications. If we can devise that thing, I think normally sometimes this vacuum state we use for quantum random number generator. That also is a very important device for quantum key distribution. So this thing is important. We have applications. We will explain also. And then another is called phase squeezed. That is how it is looking like this. You see, instead of circle tip, it's supposed to be circle according to our model assumption, but you could do that. This delta phi can be squeezed, and then your amplitude can be in this direction. It can be relaxed. That means number can be relaxed. So you can minimize your delta phi. That type of light source, if you design, that is called phase squeezed light. So that phase squeezed light actually very, very important for interferometric experiment. Interferometric experiment, you know, phase is very important. If your phase fluctuation is more, your fringe pattern, everything will be washed out. Okay. So that's why, you know, this LIGO experiment, that means a gravitational wave measurement, normally interferometric setup is used. There actually you have to measure some kind of, if some gravitational waves are coming to your system, then you have a Michelson interferometer will be there, and then very little amount of fluctuations will be there in your mirror placement. Okay, and that particular placement may be in the order of 10 to the power minus 12 phase, radian phase will be changed. So that type of phase you have to detect to visualize the existence of your gravitational wave. So that type of measurement people are looking for designing phase squeezed light. Okay, I think you have a very good example in your textbook, this Mark Fox also related to this interferometric setup. I think because it is already worked out problem, you can just see, I have not explained here. That was a nice problem. You just see probably that type of problem you can expect in your exam also. Something. So that you follow that. That's very important. So squeezed light, phase squeezed light is important for sensitive interferometric measurements. And then another, as I said, that amplitude squeezed light. So where actually you can, your amplitude is squeezed, compressed here, but your phase is relaxed in this direction, you see. So here you can have, so whatever I have just shown that, this what you call that photon number state you can generate, and you can use them for entangling purpose also. Entangled photon, I think you will find also many applications. We are actually sub-Poissonian light source basically. So this is basically towards sub-Poissonian light source. So that is actually experimentally you can also demonstrate. Okay, the photon number state line is defined for a ket alpha for which delta n equal to 0. That is actually photon number state according to our definition. So when delta n equal to 0, this is the thing. So that is what, whenever we are just showing that entangled photon pair source, that means number should not fluctuate much. Okay, that's very important. Okay, now before we go to demonstrate some experimental things about squeezed, because I want to discuss a little bit about squeezed light detection and generation, then we can go to our little bit more insight of entangled photon pairs, because without knowing that, I think you will not be able to design or understand its proper applications, or you will not be able to find that thing. So I'll be just discussing that some of the things are very nicely explained in your textbook. I'll just discuss that thing and then we can go further. So first thing is that suppose you have a source also. First you need to know whether that source is actually squeezed state, really squeezed state is generated or not. So here we'll be discussing that one particular experimental setup where we can actually detect that quadrature squeezed of a vacuum state. That means if something like this, if we have created in a device, this type of only vacuum state. As I said that the vacuum state is very much important for quantum random number generator generation. So sometimes that randomness you can also increase depending on this which quadrature you are using. Okay, either delta x1 quadrature or x2 quadrature, which quadrature you are using for your detection purpose, depending on that your randomness you can control. So suppose you have that type of device, how you can actually detect that yes, really it is a squeezed, say quadrature squeezed, if it is a vacuum state, or maybe others non-vacuum also quadrature is squeezed, that one to test. So for that purpose, normally it is used a homodyne technique. I will just explain this experimental setup and then maybe I will go a little more depth. You see, I think first concentrate here. Okay, this figure B. Suppose you have a beam splitter, and in the beam splitter, that's a 50-50 beam splitter. Okay, this beam splitter, you can just, for the moment, you can just treat it like a classical beam splitter. Okay. Normally, beam splitter, you can also treat quantum mechanically using your creation operator, annihilation operator, that we will discuss a little later. And for the moment, you just think classically, and that is good enough for this understanding of the squeezed state. 50-50 beam splitter, and then two input ports, one signal and another is so-called local oscillator. Basically, the signal you can think of that this signal is nothing but your some squeezed state you have, and you want to test that whether that is squeezed or not. Okay, that is the ultimate goal. And this local oscillator actually is a laser source also. So this is actually originated from the same laser. So suppose you have a one laser source is there, and some part of the laser you have used for generating your squeezed signal, and another part of that you can have a beam splitter, separate beam splitter, and you are bringing here to this beam splitter. So what does it mean? That this frequency of this local oscillator and frequency of this signal, they are same, because this signal is generated, though it is a squeezed state, but that is generated from same coherent source with a local oscillator. So they are same frequency. And of course you have liberty to use also local oscillator of different from the different laser source, but in that case your source related phases, etc., that will not be common with the signal and local oscillator. So that's why normally we use this signal generated from the same laser source we will be using for local oscillator. And since their frequency is same, that's why, and you will be using two photodetector here, I'll just explain, that's why it is called a homodyne detection technique. If their frequency is different, then it is called heterodyne technique. So heterodyne technique also very popular, and homodyne technique also. Mostly homodyne technique is very popular in case of our communication system, optical communication system. So this system is basically used for our testing that the signal is what do you call that, squeezed or not. Is it squeezed laser source or not, squeezed vacuum squeezed or not. That is what our intention. So the idea is that you are just somehow mixing here with the local oscillator. Then you are, whatever you are getting E1 amplitude here and E2 amplitude here, and you are detecting here, this will create some current I1 and this will be creating some current I2, and then you can have transimpedance amplifier where actually you can subtract this I1 and I2 Okay, so that you can get your difference thing. You are subtracting this thing. Okay, mixing here. So this you can use your op-amp circuit to get this type of thing. Okay, and this detection, how it is done, I will come back to this one little later when I will go for mathematics. Let us try to explain first the experiment. So what is happening here? You have the two detectors. This E1 coming here. This E1 is a mixture of again signal and LO, and E2 also. E1, both E1 and E2, the mixture of signal and local oscillator. The things are coming here. That means your squeeze state are there. And then one going to photodetector 1, you just consider this is a photodetector 1. This is a circuit equivalent thing, and this is a photodetector 2. So it is designed such that this is a simple model. So you suppose this photodetector you are giving, this is actually normally photodetector you have to give a reverse bias so that your dark noise is minimum. Normally reverse bias, and reverse bias is normally used in the photodetector. It can be a single photon, high efficient photodetector also, it's possible. And then when it is photons are coming here, you see the current, and current, because it is a positive bias here, and current will be flowing this direction. And another photodetector, this one, that is also you are giving positive bias, reverse bias. This is positive side negative bias, and this negative side positive bias it is given here. And here also current will be flowing. And then this common point you are just connecting with a grounding with a load resistance RL. Okay, so this RL you have to keep as small as possible so that this point is become almost zero potential. Okay, so if it is RL is very less, that means it is almost very little voltage drop will be here, so it will be like a zero potential. So in that case, whatever I1 and I minus I2, that will be flowing in this direction. And then again, you know, this is actually capacitor is used just to go for a high frequency filter. That means it's a AC coupled capacitor basically. And then amplifier, and you can get the voltage, that is your output. That actually gives your I1 minus I2, any modulation is there that you are getting here. That's a standard thing. And so this is actually the basically homodyne technique setup, which is sometimes called a balanced homodyne detection technique. So this balanced homodyne detectors are nowadays available also, and we are also planning to set up something like that for quantum random number generator. And how it works, you see, this is in this particular case you are considering a spatial beam splitter. This beam splitter can be anything. If it is an integrated optics, this can be a two-directional coupler type of beam splitter you can use if you are considering photonic integrated circuit. But here it is considered something just like a normal bulk beam splitter. So normal beam splitter means you can, it's available also commercially. Two different types of bulk beam splitters are available. One is the just glass, piece of glass, and one side will be anti-reflection coated, and another side you just put some kind of metal mirror, and that metal mirror thickness should be such that it will not completely reflect. So you know, metal mirror normally, metal deposition, any metal, electromagnetic wave cannot penetrate, cannot transmit because of the skin depth, etc. Something will be reflected. And the thickness, if you control such that you can get 50% transmitted and 50% deflected. Okay, but normally metal mirrors are avoided for whenever you are going for a very just to make a lossless, because metal, you know, something it will be absorbed. So it's not a good option to consider like a lossless situation. So what it is done, it's a kind of some dielectric, it can be a glass, and on the glass you just deposit some kind of another dielectric material. That means there can be, it's called dielectric mirror. So this dielectric mirror, that's refractive index will be different. It's also dielectric, this is also dielectric. So thickness will be different. So refractive index will be different. So this thing, because of the some kind of interference, it will be maybe 50% will be reflected and 50% will be transmitted. And another input here again going at 50% will be reflected here and 50% will be transmitted. Now in this treatment, you see, normally if it is a dielectric mirror, you know, this is a two different dielectric. You know, when it is getting reflected, it's, you know, it's kind of follows a Fresnel equation. I think you know that Fresnel equation, right? That reflection coefficient, if it is a normal incidence, it is a n1 minus n2 by n1 plus n2. From the Fresnel's law you get, no? So what is the reflection coefficient? You just normally from the electromagnetic theory you find that one. But if it is a at some angle, then the angle also you have to consider. And also if it is a polarization, some particular polarization, you can also have some kind of polarization consideration also. So that thing I assume that you know that. If you don't know, just you go through that, what is Fresnel reflection. That's normally in undergraduate level course we teach here also in electrical engineering as well as physics, so student also learn that. So here if you see this type of reflection, the dielectric mirror is in the top, then this one, because of the refractive index difference, high to low, etc., so there will be a pi phase shift will be there. But when something coming here and reflecting from this edge, so this one will not be any, when reflected, there will not be any phase difference. So this beam, when reflected, it is undergoing pi phase shift, but transmitted, no, no phase shift. And this beam when comes, reflection and transmission both will, there will not be any phase difference. So that means only one part, the side dielectric mirror is the pi phase shift. This is one special type of beam splitter. So different type of beam splitter, different type of phase modulation, phase change takes place. If it is a metal, then normally it is 0, 0. You can, there will be almost same phase difference will be coming here. But if it is some kind of directional coupler coupled waveguide is there, we know that there will be some kind of pi by 2 phase shift will be there. So that different situation, different type of thing you should consider. So in this case, this situation will be considering. Then what happens? E1 and E2, if you try to see, E1 you are writing like this. ES is the signal amplitude, and ELO is the local harmonic oscillator amplitude is this one, right? That means whenever this signal is coming, then it is ES 1 by root 2. And this side will be going ES 1 by root 2. Okay. But here, this side, when 1 by root 2, there will be pi phase shift. And this side, it is coming no pi phase shift. So ES I have given 1 by root 2. And 1 by root 2 times ELO also will come here. That will be added. And along with that, we have option in this type of detection that this local harmonic oscillator, we can actually modulate some phase. We can control the phase. Suppose that phase, whatever phase we introduce, that is in our hand, we can control that one. That is needed for our measurement. So that is phi LO we are considering. So that means this phi LO is the phase difference with respect to your signal we are just considering. So that means the E1 field is like this. And if you just check E2 field, because pi phase shift, we just put minus sign here. Okay. So this is E1 and E2 is there. Now the trick is that we know that this signal is actually, we know that this is it's a vacuum. We want to just kind of squeezed state. It is a quantum mechanical. So quantum nature we want to introduce here. With respect to that one, this local oscillator will be considering that is a relatively large intensity. So ELO can be considered classically whatever coming. But this one, since we want to go for squeezed state normally you cannot explain classically, right? So you have to think about quantum mechanical situations. So what we can say that this, since it is a squeezed light, we can say that it can be decomposed into quadrature fields. ES x1 component and ES x2 component. We can express this one. So in that case, this equation, this E1 and E2, if I just express this one, and also this one I can write, this is classically as it is I have written, no quadrature. Only quadrature, I'm just treating this one. So only for a signal part. And this one, I write here, ELO cos phi, because there is a imaginary part, real part, and here also if you decompose, there will be imaginary part and real part. So the real part is this one, imaginary part is this one for E1. Similarly, you just express real part, imaginary part separately. Okay, so E1, E2 you can find like that. Now we know the field strength both, and we know that this quadrature is supposed to be like this. Then E1 and E2 we know, and this E1 field, electromagnetic field, total superposition field, is actually this is I think E1, and I think this is E2. This should be PD2 actually. That's a typo mistake, I think. If it is E2, then this is actually PD2 and this is PD1. It should be something like that, whatever. It does not matter. It's a concept. So they are coming to two photodetectors. Now I can say that the photodetector output will be just square law detector. You know, that's E1 square, E2 square. That means E1 times E1 star, E2 times E2 star. That is what? Proportional to I1 and I2 basically. So if I try to see this I1 minus I2, that must be proportional to E1, E1 star minus E2, E2 star. That means two current. So I1 is proportional to this one, I2 is proportional to this one, so I1 minus I2 is proportional to this one. And we have the expression for E1 and E2. So if I try to find this expression, it ends up like this. Okay, this is very interesting formula. Okay, so we have one part cos phi LO ES x1 and sin phi LO ES x2. That means we have two quadrature field is associated with this one of our signal. That is the things we want to measure, which is squeezed probably. Okay, now you see this phi LO, it is in my hand. I can control phi LO, right? Suppose phi LO, you are just adjusting maybe 0, pi or 2 pi. What does it mean? I can have phi LO 0 means this term will survive, this term will be 0. That means I can see the effect of field quadrature, this one. X1 field quadrature effect I can see. And if I adjust phi LO, pi by 2, 3 pi by 2 and so on, then I can see this quadrature fields, right? So I have a choice. When I am just measuring I1 minus I2 here, there controlling phi LO, I can actually measure which quadrature I want of our signal, proportional to which quadrature. This component I am measuring means I am just measuring the field quadrature x1 and this is x2. Now from there you can imagine that I can actually get some kind of idea of field quadrature, whether it is squeezed or not. If it is squeezed, we'll just try to show that your noise here in the detector, the noise actually it will come down below the short noise level. So if it is a squeezed state, suppose this thing is squeezed, then here whatever noise I will be getting, that will be lower than the short noise. Short noise means whenever there is no squeezed state, normal state, whatever noise level you will be getting. Now if this signal, in the absence of signal, whatever short noise you supposed to get, signal if it is coming, then if it is squeezed, the noise level will be coming lower than the short noise. So you can beat the short noise. So just seeing that your noise level is lower than the short noise, you can ensure that your source is squeezed. I will just continue from here in the next class, that that short noise, how it is, it can come lower than the short noise, that I will be discussing, and then I will be just going for another type of squeezed state, amplitude squeezed state, how to detect. So this is what, also if you are doing some experiment in the lab also, this type of homodyne technique is required, and squeezing state measurement is possible. So I stop here today and continue tomorrow again 5 o'clock. Yeah. Any questions you have, we can discuss with. Are you listening? Hope everyone. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Sir, approximately